Type Podcast.
Here we go. Hello, hello, around the block and around the world. This is where we discuss, debate, and deliberate all things diabetes. My name is Dobie Maxwell, representing Type 2, proudly representing Type 1, the vivacious, effervescent, always in the know, Ms. Sami Parker. We'll get to Sami in a second, but first, it is my pleasure to bring on a special guest. She is from Medtronic. We'll be talking to her today's episode of JMT. It's Heather Lackey. Hey, Heather.
Hey, Dobie. Hey, Sami. How's it going?
Hello. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, you created the link between Sami and I. I'm near Chicago and Sami's in Los Angeles. Elizabeth's in Toronto. You're in Oklahoma, so we are nationwide.
That's right.
Well, we're happy to have you. Rumor has it you are a Type 1, and we always like to have our guests tell their diagnosis story, if you don't mind sharing.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was diagnosed with Type 1 diabetes. It's been a long time ago, guys, like 32 years ago, right? So in 1990, I was a junior, just started kind of my junior year of high school. Had just turned 16 years old, so just had gotten my driver's license that summer. And pretty much I've been active my whole life with cheerleading and basketball and just all kinds of, fun, active lifestyle. And that summer, my mom was just always mentioning to me that I was lazy and laying around and I just wasn't myself. I wasn't participating in activities and that kind of stuff. And so, it was our first year as a junior to go off campus from our high school to eat lunch. And so as all of my other friends were eating just along with me, we were eating at, restaurants and high fat food and, quick trip type stuff. The weight gain was really starting to show on a few of my friends, actually on many of my friends. And I was so thirsty, I was diagnosed in October, but starting really kind of like the end of August, all through September, I kept telling my friends, if you guys would just kind of drink water the way I am, the weight is just coming off of me, right? And so October comes around and I'm literally like, you guys, I don't even have to unbutton my pants, to get those down. No problem. Like I had lost so much food, right? And so my friends, Heather, we're trying to drink as much as you. And I'm like, it's an unquenchable thirst, right? It's just, I could, stick a straw in the lake and I could drink the whole thing and I'd still be thirsty, right? So you all understand what I'm talking about to that degree. So, was diagnosed and did everything that I could to just try to manage living with Type 1 diabetes. For me, my pediatrician was an amazing doctor. She was fabulous and she tried to do everything she could. The rest of my team, they had textbook knowledge. They didn't know any real world living with Type 1 diabetes in those days, exchanges and, oh my gosh, regular NPH, Ultralente. Those are some old throwback insulins, for a lot of people. So anyway, just my diagnosis story, my mom and dad are just like amazing people. They took me everywhere that they could to try to get the best care for me. Finally ended up a couple of years, like my senior year, actually on my birthday, I ended up at Mayo Clinic, not for any terrible reason, but was actually put into like an inpatient MDI study, right? That was when the DCCT, the landmark study that said, if you have multiple, injections a day, your risk of complications is so much lower and all that stuff. So once we heard that this landmark study was coming out, man, my parents were taking me anywhere that they could to try to get the best therapy for me.
So crazy. What do you think's been the biggest change since you were diagnosed to now?
Biggest change is my life no longer revolves around insulin, whereas before, early on, my life did revolve around insulin. So today, insulin revolves around me. I hope I said that right.
You totally did.
Whereas earlier, everything was timed and food was at the right time and insulin, dosing, that kind of stuff.
So was it weird for you in the movie? Because I know you had your special role in the Purple Hearts movie, right?
Oh, yeah.
When you were helping with the pump?
Yeah, that was such an amazing thing to be able to, for one of the producers, right, to contact Medtronic. They said, hey, we're going to do the movie and we want to use your insulin pump, right? We've talked to friends and family members and neighbors and things like that. And all these people have insulin pumps. So this is like the best therapy for you. They reached out to Medtronic, and so many of them have Medtronic products. And the communications, team just got me in touch with the medical producer. He was a fabulous guy. And anyway, with Sophia needing to learn the pump and the team not being, experts on it, they were like, do you mind coming out and helping us? Of course, that was a wonderful experience. And then by the end, they were like, hey, why don't you take a look at the script? Whenever I made some comments on a few things that, I certainly, I was like, I don't even know my place here, guys. I don't want to say anything negative. I want to respect you guys. And they were like, no, you tell us. We want the accuracy of this movie to be so spot on that if you see something wrong. So I started, pointing out a few things on the film or on set. And again, just very respectfully. And then they were like, no, we want you to review the script and give us feedback and make adjustments. And what an honor it was for them to take my feedback and implement it into the movie, So that was awesome. Whenever I first arrived, that first day, unbeknownst to me, it was the very first day of filming. So for the whole crew, it was day one. I didn't know that. I just showed up, got off of the bus, that takes you from the parking lot up to the set. Yeah. And so they were like, who are you? And where are you supposed to be? And so anyway, the cast, the crew, they were phenomenal. They were helping me with all kinds of stuff. So whenever I finally met Cassie, or Sophia, who plays Cassie, the main character, right? Whenever I met Sophia Carson, she was like, let's go back to my trailer. And she literally wanted to do this movie so spot on, so accurate. She was like, once she knew that I had type 1 diabetes and wore the system and, CGM and pump and all that jazz, she was like, pour into me everything with hyper, what's your story? What does diabetes look like in your life? How does it impact you? Tell me about the technology, like everything. So we had almost like a 2-hour crash session with Sophia and her mom, Laura, who is just amazingly beautiful person as Sophia is. And it was truly phenomenal, to be able to be there teaching them about type 1 diabetes as quickly as I could. As a matter of fact, one of the earlier scenes in the movie, when Sophia walks out into her car in the parking lot and she has to give herself a shot, she was like, Heather, what do I do? As far as how do I inject this? Do I, where can you inject insulin? I was like, oh, girl, you can go arm, leg, stomach, hip.
You can go anywhere you want.
Anywhere.
Yeah, wherever. But, so it was so cool to be able to go like, hey, whenever you're there, what would be the best shot? Typically, right, we use a door, we use something to be able to pull the back of your arm, the skin and everything that's there to show you how to draw up insulin. And
so she has it's the MiniMed 770, right?
She does in the movie. That's what Cassie's the character. Yeah, she gets, that's the whole plan, right? To get the better insurance so that she can have better.
Oh, yeah.
So getting a CGM and yeah, in this case, it was the Guardian Sensor 3 and the MiniMed 770G system.
What's the biggest changes between the 770G and the pump prior?
And the pump prior, well, MiniMed 670G was the first hybrid closed loop system. And then MiniMed 770G, right, is also a hybrid closed loop system, but it has that Bluetooth connectivity. And so you now have the...
Wait, I'm blanking. When did the 770G come out again?
Well, that's a good question.
Because I think, so I was on a pump, but I'm really active, so I like using the InPen. But I was on the pump and I still have it. And I'm pretty sure it was a 770G. It was closed loop.
Yeah.
But it is so awesome. Oh, our Pod Squad producer said it came out in 2020. Yes,
Queen Elizabeth is on it, Heather. We are in good hands.
That is the one I had then. I got it right now.
We can bring up anything and Elizabeth will be on it. That's why she makes the big money.
Yeah, right before COVID.
Right on. Yeah.
But it is so awesome. Like the technology now is insane that especially for parents with younger kids too, that they're unable to express how they feel and whatnot. It's so awesome to have a closed loop system and kind of be in control of that. So
well, it is. And it's awesome to be able to connect with your loved one, whenever you're wanting to know what's with their glucose. I travel globally with my position, so before COVID, I might be in Switzerland for a few days and then I might hop over to Sydney, Australia. And then I might be, swinging by South Korea. So, just moving all of different places throughout the world. It's lovely. Mm-hmm. Not that my husband follows, connects, or looks at my data all the time, but when we're opposite ends of the hemisphere, it's kind of nice for him to be able to just pop in, check, see what's going on.
He can keep his eye on you, Heather.
Yeah, he can.
Well, especially
I'm kidding. I'm teasing.
I'm not answering the phone or something like that.
It's funny that you brought up the 770 and you said there's a 670. I was going to ask a dumb question, which I usually do, that there were 769, before the 770G came out. But it's like, okay, that's because it's funny when they name something, they say, wow, there's 769 other pumps before they got to this one.
It's like the iPhone.
Just clarifying that for the listeners in case anybody wondered.
That's a good question. Yes, 670, 770, and then, there's other products, of course, outside the United States. You guys have a global audience, so others may be already knowing about the future products, right?
We're big in Jamaica. Just want you to know that. So shout out to Jamaica. Elizabeth tells us we're big there. We love you.
So, Heather, I have a question. Well, did you think, and I'm only curious because I know everybody's lows is different. So what to you in the movie when Cassie goes to I think it's 65, right? Do you feel pretty shaky when you're that low or no? I know everybody has different reactions.
I think that it totally depends on not just the direction or the number that you are, but how fast you got there.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm 90 and then I'm 65 3 hours later and I've had, a 25-point drop over 3 hours, no, I don't feel it at all. Right? I'm fine.
Totally. Mm-hmm.
Right? And after, again, 32 years of having type 1, there's a little bit of emergency response, to hypo protection that has probably wasted away in my body a little bit. But here's the thing. Whenever you've got 3 triple down arrows on your sensor and you were, 218, you bolus late, now the food showed up to the party before the insulin. So, now the food's already digesting, right? And here you've got all this garb of insulin still circulating and floating around in your body, and you were dropping that fast. I mean, I can even have that. I feel low, but I'm not low.
I have that all the time.
Whenever you're dropping just so quickly.
I'm like, I swear I'm low.
Right? You're like, 7. I feel like I need to eat, the house.
Not a good fiber there.
Yes.
I just did that prior.
You're eating the house.
I see that fiber in that wood. But so it totally just depends. And I've had so many people ask, specifically about the, about in Purple Hearts, whenever Cassie has the low and everything. And they're like, I don't ever have to have my boyfriend, my husband, my, significant other, whatever, put glucose in my mouth whenever I'm, in the 60s. I can't remember what the glucose number was. But I think the biggest thing in that movie on that scene is just seeing that those triple down arrows are present, or double arrows. I mean, she was dropping so fast. And, some patients, they definitely have some pretty strong hypo awareness, and they have some strong symptoms dropping. Yeah.
The Diabetes app is an online community platform that was created to help people living with diabetes find support and information in one spot.
And on the Diabetes app, you can join groups and connect with other people all over the world who are also living with diabetes. I mean, for me, whenever I have a bad day, I find myself scrolling through the mental wellness group, just to reassure myself that I'm not alone.
The Diabetes app has a resource section where you can find articles, recipes, tips, and tricks for managing your diabetes. Download the Diabetes app today and connect with us right on the app. Heather, I have a question for you. How important do you think it is to be accurate with diabetes representation in movies and TV and media? Because a lot of times it is not. And I think it's like, I have a cousin who's a police officer, and I say, is that how it's like when I see a movie or a TV show? It's like, that's nothing like it is. So how is important do you think with diabetes? We think it is.
Yeah, no, I think that's why, Medtronic was so excited to be able to partner and just kind of collaborate with Purple Hearts, because it is so important, right? For movies to depict real life with type 1 diabetes, and for people to see the struggle, for people to see the day-to-day in and out, everything that we do can be impacted by, how you feel, how your glucose is, all kinds of stuff. So the accuracy of diabetes being depicted is critical. And in some movies, in the past, people have had very backwards thoughts on type 1 diabetes or even type 2 diabetes because of how it was depicted in a movie. So I'll never forget, 1989. So Sami, you were not born yet. I'm betting my paycheck.
That's okay.
Okay. Dobie, I don't know about you either.
No, I was young when I was old. I was old when I was young. I'm all you. I was born in 63. I don't hide it. So 89, I was out there slugging.
Well, so many people, because of Still Magnolias, the movie that came out, they weren't going to have kids because they had type 1 diabetes and, seeing this. And I know that was a story about, that was a real story to the creator or the writer. So I can appreciate that. That's what happened to his sister. But, we just want to make sure we're depicting the right, accurate life with type 1 or type 2 diabetes in movies. It's critical.
Yeah.
I love Still Magnolias. It's like my top 5 movies, but Panic Room was also a cool movie that
I didn't see that one. What's that about?
The mom and daughter, they're in the house and there's intruders. Can't remember. This is years ago that I saw this. Anyway, there's like this panic room that you can go to. And the daughter has type 1 diabetes. Anyway, she's having a hypo. And boy, do they get that glucagon emergency shot and just stab it into her, which again, that's not probably what most would do.
Yeah.
But so you might have to check it out. It's an oldie but goodie, but it is important. It's important on TV. It's important anytime that diabetes is depicted. On this here podcast, it's important.
Sami and I were talking off mic about how a breakthrough movie that Purple Hearts was, because it did portray things accurately. And Sami was impressed. I asked what she thought because she's type 1, and Sami was glowing about it. She said, yeah, it was very good. So kudos to you and Medtronic for pulling that off.
With the low blood sugar, like I said, for example, I'm a weirdo. I do not feel low until I'm very low, typically. But I know that everybody's different. And I said, I think for me, like, everybody has an opinion in life. Everybody has to say something about everything nowadays because we can't just enjoy anything anymore. So I was like trying to explain to people, the bigger picture is that like people need to understand what it means to be low, what you need, and the support. Like that should be like the biggest picture out of it, not necessarily the exact number because everybody's different. So I thought the movie was really well done. And the pharmacy scene too was really accurate because my sensor had died and I went to go get test strips. I was at my boyfriend's in Santa Monica and he went with me and I was like, I'm not going to drive an hour home right now to go get test strips. Like I'm going to just pay out of pocket. So we go to pay out of pocket and he's like $75. And we're like, oh, one thing. And he goes, wait, did he just say $75? I was like, yes. Yes, as in 7.5. Yes, that's what he said. But it's crazy.
It's shocking how insulin. I'm like telling people, I'm a dietitian, I'm a diabetes educator, I'm board certified in advanced diabetes management. All I do each and every day is diabetes education. My goal is to help people live a better life and an easier life. So whenever people can't afford the insulin, even if they have insurance, which kind of was the case in in the movie, right? With Cassie didn't have insurance, but for people that don't, I'm like, guys, it's life support. It's not a nice to have. It makes me feel better. It keeps us alive. So we've got to help with health inequities and help promote the cost and the need, and that's one thing that I was so excited, right, that Medtronic kind of got behind was that, just kind of in coinciding with the Purple Hearts release, that Medtronic, right, did that campaign to donate to Insulin for Life. So for every post that someone is showing a picture of them watching a movie or, doing something to support Purple Hearts or insulin, how bad we need it, then they're donating $2 for every single post and photo. So
that's awesome.
It is awesome, but it brings up the awareness that there are so many people that don't have access to not only technology, but insulin. So we gotta bring that to the awareness of many.
We have listeners all over the world, and a lot of times people listen in other countries, their healthcare is taken care of. And I'm not trying to get political or anything like that, but it's just something that people need it. And whatever side of the political spectrum you're on, I think we have to agree to find a way that, look, we need to put this aside because people need what they need. Yeah. And it's not their fault that they have diabetes.
That's exactly right. Type 1 or type 2,
Right.
So you're on the pump, right?
I am, yes.
And what would you say for someone listening and also somebody who's like newly diagnosed, what's been the biggest change for you since being on the pump And then you guys also have the My Insights program, right?
Yeah, totally. So I'm glad you brought that up. So biggest change of being on the pump, my whole life, I pretty much had I think a pretty positive attitude about, having type 1, right? I'm like, man, it could be so much worse.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, that I meet patients and they're so devastated and they're like, it could be so much better. So, you're just trying to make the best with what you have. So for me on shots and things, if I took 5, 10, 12 shots a day, to me, that was not a big deal, right? I did grow tired of it after years and years, right? So I was on shots for the first 7 years of my life when everyone was trying to push a pump down my throat. And I certainly didn't want an insulin pump at that time, right?
Everybody does it.
You don't put it down your throat, you put it on your arm.
Good luck.
They're like, why are you not on a pump? My goodness, you've got insurance. Your parents are great. This technology is so great. But I wasn't there. And so I can totally appreciate meeting people where they are in their journey. But the nicest thing about the pump is being able to exercise for me, right? That's honest to goodness, the biggest change of pump therapy in general. Now, not these like highly sophisticated automated insulin delivery systems, but just in general, the ability to stop insulin, to lower insulin, to actually match what your body needs versus taking this like big dose of long-acting insulin. Yeah. For me, that gave me the ability to go exercise, right? Because I hated being on the elliptical or the treadmill or whatever. And I would look at how many calories I'm burning. And then sure enough, I'd have a low. And then I would have more calories in juice and peanut butter crackers or gel or whatever that I was using to treat my low. And I'm going to gain weight if I continue to exercise. I'm so sensitive, to exercise.
Very, very true.
Yeah. So for me, that was the biggest thing. The most enlightening thing with having a pump that automates your insulin delivery for you was seeing like every single night, for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nights in a row, I was looking, overnight while I was sleeping. So no food or anything was being consumed. And I could see that my sensor glucose was, pretty flat each night, but the way the insulin was delivered was totally different. And so for the first time in my life, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm finally getting insulin that my body needs. And it's not my fault. Whenever I was on shots or whenever I was on the pump and I did everything the same on Monday versus Tuesday versus Wednesday. Tuesday at lunch, my blood sugar is 118. Wednesday at lunch, I'm 241. I'm like, what the heck? I had the same breakfast, the same foods. I did everything right.
Yeah.
And so it just goes to show that our bodies do need different insulin amounts at different moments of the day. And yeah, so that's been a huge thing. But the My Insights, since you mentioned that, My Insights, that's a new program exclusively for Medtronic. And it's made for anyone using the MiniMed 770G system. And what that is it's a monthly email that customizes your tips based on your device data. So you get like this monthly dashboard.
Awesome.
And it shows your achievements, it shows your time and range, it shows your trends, and then it gives you some personalized tips, that it takes from the data. But, for me, whenever I'm explaining this to, anyone, I'm like, look, we see our endocrinologist or our physician, our clinician, at best, like 4 times a year, once a quarter. I mean, a lot of people only see their diabetes care, twice a year. So this is like a monthly kind of a nice encouragement, right? Where you're going, hey, Dobie, man, your time and range was such. Look at all the amazing things that you're doing. So it gives a lot of cheerleading and encouragement to the patient.
It's a self-esteem builder, Heather.
It is. Yeah.
We need that sometimes. I know I do. Sami cheers me up. I try to cheer her up too, but sometimes it can be a mutual admiration society. Heather, our time is going. Heather Lackey is our special guest. You are fantastic from Medtronic.
Yes.
Any predictions that you might have that's coming up from Medtronic? You just kind of mentioned any hot things you can share with us to keep us more excited about the future?
Well, technology is always bright and hopefully coming to everyone globally in the very near future.
Well, we have a question of the pod, which we ask at the end of the every episode. Sami, what is our question of the pod today?
What would be your ideal pump in mind?
Heather, what do you think?
Oh, my ideal pump is where I don't have to do anything.
Yep.
I just slap it on and go.
That's mine too.
That's my ideal world. That saves my eyes, my kidneys, and my feet, and my heart. So
yes.
Great outcomes without making me too low. And then I don't have to do anything.
I think we're going to see that in our lifetime. I really do, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, it's sure going in that direction.
Well, everybody, you can share your answer with us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at JustMyTypePod _ Facebook at JustMyTypePod, and our hashtag JustMyTypePod. And you can find Medtronic at Medtronic Diabetes on Instagram. I'm correct, right? Yes, pretty sure. But Medtronic has all platforms. I follow them. I look at them. I go on your guys' website. So go check it out. We are so excited to have you guys listen to this episode. And Heather, thank you once again for coming on. It's been a pleasure, and you are such a light. So thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And hopefully we will get together if we ever come through Oklahoma City. Hopefully Sammy and I want to do a world tour. So we're going to definitely put Oklahoma City on that tour. Thanks to everybody for listening. Thanks to Queen Elizabeth, our Pod Squad queen, who absolutely came through again today, as she always does. Go check out our past episodes. And I think that's it. Sammy, let's put the sugar-free cherry on the healthy Sunday one last time.
C'est la vie, baby.
This is the Just My Type podcast.